Hello, welcome to Tile Coach. My name's Isaac Ostrom. Really glad you're here hanging out with me today, learning how to make a shower floor flat to put a foam shower pan in. First thing I do is get all the dust and debris off of the slab using a rag or a sponge. And next I put down a thin set slurry. This is a modified thin set mixed up pretty loose like pancake batter. What this is going to do is help the mortar bed that I put down bond to the existing slab. So we're going to be using a fast setting mortar here so that we could get this pan installed immediately after. The mortar we're going to be using sets up in about 15 minutes, so we are going to be working very diligently and carefully with purpose. Checking here to see what levels are going to work to set up my screeds. I start putting down my fast setting mortar to make my screed lines here. These screed lines are going to be my guides for my straight edge to screed off of. You think of it like a concrete form, but it's going to be made out of mortar. Now, what I'm using here is the Rapid Set brand mortar mix. You can find it at Home Depot. I am not sponsored in any way by this manufacturer, but we've been using it for years with really good results. So I just want to pass on the information to you guys and hopefully help you out. So I'm getting my screed lines level, and the high point of the shower floor is that top right corner of the pan, and as it goes to the left, as you are looking at the video, when I refer to right and left and top and bottom, it's how you are looking at the screen here. So the right side was the high point, the left side was the low point, and this slab was pretty jacked up. It was like a ½ inch out, so I'm going to have a lot more mortar on that screed on the left side than I am on the right. Once I get that screed line about where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and transfer that level mark down to my bottom screed here. And you can see how much more mud is needed there on the left side of the screed because that slab is so out of level. Rarely are slabs level. I don't know why they can't get them level, but they just don't. So I'm making a level point from my top screed to my bottom screed, and then I can work from right to left here, making my screed line. Getting that screed line nice and level. It was a little low in the middle, so I'm using some mortar to fill that in. And you want to create some really nice defined screed lines to go off of. You don't want them sloppy. Try to make it a nice defined line. You can do that by kind of moving your level back and forth to get it nice and flat and defined. I check again from the top screed to the bottom screed. Now I'm taking off excess mortar at an angle from that screed line. Obviously you don't want anything higher than those screed lines, or else when you drag your straight edge across it, it's going to ride on those high points. So I use my margin trowel and kind of go at an angle to cut off the mortar off of my screed line. Wouldn't say it's quite a 45-degree angle, probably more like a 22-degree angle. Nice having that plumbing box open too. I just put all my extra mortar in that little hole there as I fill it in. Check again with the 4-foot Stabila. Make my line there nice and defined. Drag, drag, drag. And then I'll see if everything transferred over nicely. Make sure that's level from those 2 points. You can see I was a little high on that bottom screed. So I make a little indention there, and then I can take that 3-foot level and go make it level from right to left. Take a little bit more off. It was only about a 1/16 of an inch, but that does make a difference. So I had to just lower that screed down a little bit and then clean it up. Clean it up real nice. And then I got to cut a little more at an angle off of there. Just take a little more mud off of there. And you have, like I said, about 10 minutes, a good 10 minutes of working time with these screeds. This video is sped up. It's sped up 200%. So it's half of the actual working time that I use. So we are about 12 minutes into this, and my screeds are already starting to set up. It's already starting to set up. So yeah, you probably have about 15 minutes. So you got to work quick in small batches. And oh yeah, there's the extra mud that we had in the bucket that I didn't need, and I was really glad I had this little hole to fill in. I put all my little mortar. You can see that mud is already setting up. It's already starting to set up, and I kind of having to work it pretty good to move it around. I check my screed lines again. You might be wondering why I'm not using a self-leveling underlayment here. There's a couple reasons. The primary reason is that time was a factor here. I needed to install this pan right away. Self-leveling underlayment, you need to wait 4 hours, even with the customs level quick, the fast setting. Self-leveling underlayments, they require 4 hours after you pour it to when you can walk on it and put tile on it or a foam pan on it. So this mortar, being that it sets up in about 15 minutes, yeah, it's going to be a lot faster for us. The other thing is that this mortar is much cheaper. It's only about half of the cost. You're going to be about $22 a bag versus $39 is what you would spend on the customs level quick. So it's about half the price. And you know, as far as the install labor and time, you know, you would still have to put like foam around the perimeter, and I would have had to fill in this box anyways. So you know, I don't know if it would have been any faster to do self-leveling underlayment, because this whole thing took me 40 minutes start to finish, and self-leveler, by the time you do your spray foam, by the time I would have filled in that box, the time I would have you know, had to set everything up and mix it, I mean, it would have been at least 25 or 30. So I think would have been about, you know, maybe a little less install time, but again, time being the primary factor in why I chose this method, it just worked out for us. So I'm just finishing up these screeds and let them set up. Now it's time for, we took a little lunch break. It was just a good time for a break. Let these screeds set up, get really hard, and now it's time to fill in. So I'm using my slurry to put down in the places where I'm going to be filling in. See, I'm careful not to put it where I'm going to be kneeling or putting my hands in, because I didn't want thin set to get everywhere on my knee pads and all that stuff, and tracking it everywhere. So do my first little pour here. You'll notice this mortar, the first batch we mixed up here, is a little stiff. But it's workable. I do have to use a little elbow grease to kind of work it around and get it to where I want it to. But it was actually, you'll see when I do my second batch here, which is a lot looser, this batch screeded off really nicely. I like how it worked, so I would probably prefer it to be this consistency that I did right here. It kind of just it stayed put a little bit better, and when I screeded it didn't drag and leave low spots like when you use a loose mortar, it tends to happen. So I just get it filled in, then I can use my 4-footer to screed off of those screed lines. What's nice here is I can use force and I don't have to worry about those screed lines getting messed up. Because if you've seen me do my shower pans with deck mud and dry pack, the screed lines I set up are still wet as I'm working it, so I have to be really careful not to dig into those screed lines. Well, these screed lines are already set up rock hard, so I can just go for it, and as you can see, it works out really well. Just put that whole bag down and everything worked out really nicely. Filling in my edges. It's about this time I tell Zach to go up and mix the second batch to put down. Again, because this mortar sets up so fast, you really need to work in batches. There's no way I could have mixed up. So this pan took 3 bags total, and there's no way I would have tried to do it all at once, right? That would just be stupid. So I did the screeds in one bag, and then I did this first little fill in with another bag, and then I wait till I got it down. Then I told Zach, I said, okay, I'm about ready, go ahead and mix up the other one, because if I would have tried to do these 2 batches, these 2 fill-ins at the same time, I don't think I could have got it done. I couldn't work that fast. Again, we are 12 minutes into this video, which is 24 minutes actual working time. So yeah, I cut out around the drain here. I made a little thing to give me a nice diameter for where that pipe hub is going to go down. So you see the second batch here is pretty loose. I think Zach initially mixed it up a little bit stiff, and then he added some water. Maybe he added a little too much water, but it was pretty loose. A lot easier to spread, but a lot more difficult to screed. So there's a very fine line, because also the looser the mix, obviously it's going to last a little bit longer and not go off as fast, where the first fill-in batch that we did, that's going to go off really quickly. Yeah, but you see the mud, when it's loose like that, it just kind of drags, and I have to kind of fill in and stuff like that. So I liked that first pour a lot better, that consistency, but I'm making it work. I just kind of have to fill in and keep screeding it. It just kind of wants to drag when it's wet like that. It just kind of wants to drag is what it does. But not that big of a deal. Make it work. It's also really nice to have a good helper when you're doing stuff like this. You don't really see it, but Zach is in the background continuously working. He's either cleaning my tools, handing me tools, mixing the mortar, getting rid of it out of the buckets, doing stuff like that, where when you're working with fast setting products like this, you really need to have help and have a game plan of how you're going to do it. So that's my hope with you by making these videos, is that you get kind of a realistic look of what it takes to do it. Then you can have a game plan. And if you've never used this product before, I would probably say it would be good to do a little test. Again, because depending on temperature and humidity, it might go off a little faster, a little slower, and it would be good, maybe just make up a little box, like a little 12-inch by 12-inch box, and mix up some mortar, get the feel of the consistency a little bit, screed it off, and then you'll be able to recognize how long that you'll have to work with it based on the consistency that you make it. So just finishing up, here, this was a little bit of a tricky area as it worked into this, as the pony wall turned into the curb here. I didn't make 2 screed points. I just have the screed point that was my original screed line up on the top, and that's the only thing that I really have to work off of right here. So I kind of do this by feel. A lot of it's just kind of by feel. I think I just try to take off excess mortar. It seems like the more mud you have that you try to screed, it just drags more. So again, you see me taking as much off as I can without going below my level, but I'm probably only about 3/16 higher than the plane I want to be on, so that when I do screed, it doesn't just drag a bunch of stuff out. But yeah, I'm doing this kind of a lot by feel and by sight. I take this 4-footer and you can put it at an angle and kind of guide it. But I didn't really like how that was working. It started to dig in a little bit and this mud was still pretty wet. So Zach had a little 2-foot level he had kicking around in the back of his truck. And so I think that's what he went out to the truck to go get it for me. And while I got some time, I take my little cardboard piece out that I had to create my little space around the drain. There's that little 2-footer he had. So I have a hard screed point on the left side, and I just work from my left to right as I'm working, or top to bottom as you're looking at the video. And just using my flat trowel, kind of guiding it off of that hard screed point there and cutting the edge off. Yeah, you can see a lot of this is just feel. A lot of it's just, I've done a lot of floating, so these little areas I can kind of just use my trowel and use it as a gauge without digging in too much. So that's looking pretty good. So we are at minute 17 of the video, which is 34 minutes into this mortar bed. Yeah, it's just kind of time to clean it up. Again, getting any of those little boogers out of the perimeter, making sure this is really clean, because you don't want to have to be chiseling anything out. This mortar, it dries. It's not that it is. It dries really fast, but it also dries really hard. So you have to be careful to clean it up real nice. You don't want to have to chisel anything out. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with how this mortar bed has come out. I'm just using my flat trowel to kind of knock any ridges down, make it nice and smooth. You can see it's already set up to where I can put my weight on my wood float there with my left hand. And the first section of fill and pour that we did is pretty much set up. I don't know if I could even fix anything if I really wanted to. That's how fast it goes. But yeah, just cleaning up the edges. And now it's time to just kind of check the level. You'll see here I keep turning my level around because actually it was this 4-foot Stabila that was about a 1/16 inch out of level, and I just couldn't believe it. You see, I put my fist down in the mortar. It's already set up, so this floor is done. If it was out of level, there's not much I could do about it. But yeah, I found out this $150 Stabila level is out of level, and I can't believe it. I keep checking it. That little 16-inch. I'm going, man, no way is this level not level. It's my most expensive level I have. But yeah, somehow I must have dropped it or beat it with a mallet too much, but it's about a 1/16 out. Well, there you have it. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I love you. I love being your tile coach. See you on the next video.